Ethan Cole hit the ground hard, his body jarring as he rolled down a slope of jagged black rock. His helmet's HUD flickered with damage warnings. His oxygen was leaking, his right arm was bruised, and the suit's stealth systems were failing. He shoved aside the alerts and focused on one thing: survival. The crash had been brutal. 1 minute, he was piloting the recon shuttle through the upper atmosphere of this unnamed world. The next, his systems were fried by a directed energy burst. He'd barely managed to eject before the ship became a fireball. Now he was alone, stranded, and worst of all, being hunted. He crouched low, pressing his back against the craggy surface of a boulder. The air was dense with humidity, carrying the sharp scent of alien vegetation. His breath was steady, controlled. He listened. There, just beyond the ridge, something moved. The sound was too calculated, too rhythmic to belong to an animal. Ethan had spent enough time in war zones to recognize when he was being stalked. They had been on him since the crash. He hadn't seen them directly, but he caught glimpses, shimmering figures moving through the mist, watching, waiting. At first, he thought they were just observing, but then the first attack came. A projectile, fast and silent, had buried itself into the rock where his head had been a fraction of a second earlier. They were testing him. Ethan had spent the last 12 hours evading them, covering his tracks, setting false trails. It hadn't slowed them down. They were relentless. More than that, they were enjoying this. He adjusted his grip on his combat knife, the only real weapon he had left. His rifle had been lost in the crash, and his sidearm had only a few rounds remaining. He wouldn't waste them unless absolutely necessary. He needed to understand his pursuers, not engage them head-on. A low hum rippled through the air, followed by a flickering distortion to his left. Ethan went rigid, his mind racing. Cloaking technology. Advanced. Refined. And that meant whoever they weren't just some random alien predators. He moved slowly, careful not to disturb the loose gravel beneath his boots. His gaze swept the terrain. A jagged valley, thick with towering fungal growths that stretched toward the sky like skeletal fingers. Shadows danced between them as the planet's twin moons cast an eerie glow. Then movement. Ethan dropped flat against a rock just as a figure emerged from the mist. It was tall, armored, and moving with the effortless grace of a seasoned hunter. The creature's helmet was sleek, featureless, except for a thin visor that pulsed with a soft, green glow. It carried a weapon, long curved, almost ceremonial in design, yet undeniably lethal. It turned its head slightly, scanning the area before stepping forward. Another followed, then a third. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He had been hunted before, but this was different. These creatures weren't just tracking him. They were studying him, assessing his reactions, measuring his fear. He couldn't run forever. They would wear him down, corner him. He needed to turn the game against them. Carefully, he inched backward, using the terrain as cover. He needed distance, a vantage point where he could observe without being seen. He spotted an outcrop above, a narrow ledge that overlooked the valley. It would be risky, but it was his best option. He moved fast, climbing with precision, muscles burning as he pulled himself up. His hands found the edge of the ledge just as the sound of shifting gravel reached his ears. He froze. One of them was close. Too close. Ethan pressed himself flat, barely breathing. The hunter below him moved with practiced silence, its weapon held at the ready. It paused, head tilting slightly as if listening. Then, without warning, it looked up. Ethan reacted on instinct. He launched forward, kicking off the ledge. The impact was brutal. His shoulder slammed into the hunter's chest, knocking it off balance. They tumbled together, crashing down the slope. Pain flared through Ethan's ribs as they hit the ground. He twisted, rolling clear just as the alien recovered. It moved fast, too fast, but he was faster. Before it could react, he drove his knife into the joint of its armor, twisting deep. A guttural snarl ripped from its throat as it staggered back, greenish fluid spilling from a wound. But Ethan wasn't done. He yanked the knife free, pivoted, and struck again, this time at the base of its neck. The creature spasmed once, then went still. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. The body lay motionless at his feet. For the first time since the hunt began, silence stretched around him. Then came the realization. This had been a test. A lone hunter, sent ahead while the others watched. A sacrifice to see how their prey would fight. Ethan looked up toward the mist. The glowing visors were still there, still watching. And now they knew he wasn't just running anymore. Now he was hunting them. Ethan crouched beside the fallen hunter, his fingers slick with the alien's blood. The body was heavy, armored in an exoskeletal weave that felt both organic and manufactured. Their technology was advanced, but not invulnerable. That was what mattered. That was what he needed to exploit. The others hadn't moved. He could feel their presence, their glowing visors still hovering in the mist, watching. They weren't rushing to avenge their fallen. No, they were calculating, reassessing their prey. He could almost hear their thoughts. How had he done it? How had a mere human killed one of them? Ethan wiped his blade clean against his torn sleeve, eyes scanning the corpse for anything useful. The curved weapon the alien had carried was unlike anything he had seen before. Lightweight, yet balanced, designed for speed rather than brute force. He tested its grip. It felt good in his hands, an extension of himself. He sheathed his knife and took the weapon. If they wanted to test him, he would show them the consequences. The mist thickened around him, curling to the jagged landscape like a living thing. He moved silently, every step measured. They were still watching, but now he was watching back. He traced their positions, noting how they shifted, how they adjusted their spacing to cover more ground. They were precise, disciplined. That was fine. He had fought precision before. Precision could be manipulated. Ethan moved deeper into the valley, leading them away from open ground. The terrain was his ally. Sharp cliffs, uneven footing, dense fungal growths that offered concealment. If they wanted to stalk him, he would give them something to stalk. A low clicking sound echoed through the air, followed by another. Communication. He couldn't understand the language, but he didn't need to. They were coordinating. Good. He slid into the shadows beneath a craggy overhang, pressing himself against the rock. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and something faintly metallic. He gripped the stolen weapon, keeping his breathing slow, controlled. A shimmer in the mist. Movement. One of them had broken off from the group, moving cautiously, scanning the area. A scout, testing the silence. Ethan remained motionless, watching. The alien stepped forward, its visor glowing faintly, weapon raised. Closer. A second step. Ethan struck. He moved in a blur, slashing low. The blade cut through the air with a whisper, finding the soft joint between the armor plating. The alien let out a strangled hiss, staggering as Ethan drove the weapon deeper, twisting. The glow in its visor flickered, then faded. Ethan caught the body before it hit the ground, lowering it gently. No sound, no alarm, just a silent death. 2 down. The others would know something was wrong soon. He didn't have much time. He stripped the body of its belt, a compact device attached to the waist, pulsing faintly. Some kind of tech. He didn't know what it did, but if they carried it, it had to be important. He clipped it onto his own belt and moved. The mist churned, shifting unnaturally. Then he heard it, heavy footsteps, approaching fast. They had found the body. Ethan broke into a run, weaving through the terrain, letting them chase. He needed them angry, needed them reckless. The sound of pursuit was close behind, the telltale hum of their weapons charging. He dove behind a rock formation just as a bolt of energy seared past, slamming into ground with enough force to shatter stone. He didn't stop. He moved sideways, unpredictable, forcing them to react rather than plan. Another shot, closer this time. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself forward. He needed a trap. Then he saw it, a narrow ravine, its edges unstable, riddled with deep crevices. Perfect. He sprinted toward it, feigning desperation, knowing they would see it as weakness. The first hunter leapt after him, landing hard. Ethan spun, already in motion. He drove his shoulder into the alien's side, sending it stumbling backward. The loose rock beneath its feet crumbled. For a second, the hunter flailed, trying to regain balance. Then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness below. Ethan didn't wait. He kept moving, using the momentum. Another bolt of energy streaked past, grazing his shoulder, burning through fabric and flesh. He hissed in pain but didn't slow. Pain was nothing. Pain was fuel. The remaining hunters were closing in, but now their movements weren't as precise. They were reacting. They were uncertain. That was the shift he needed. He reached higher ground, turning to face them. Two still standing. One scanning the area, wary now. The other gripping its weapon tighter than before. They weren't invincible. They knew it, and so did he. For the first time since the hunt began, the balance had shifted. Ethan wasn't running anymore. He was winning. The jungle was alive with the sounds of pursuit. The remaining two hunters were moving fast, their discipline unraveling with every step. Ethan could hear it in the way their boots struck the ground, the sharp clicks of their weapons charging. They were no longer stalking. They were chasing. Hunting had turned into desperation. He moved like a shadow, slipping through the terrain, always a step ahead. The wound on his shoulder burned, but he ignored it. Pain was secondary to survival. He had their weapons, their technology, but more importantly, he had their fear. They were learning that he was not prey. A sound behind him, a rustle too deliberate to be the wind. He dropped low, pressing himself against the thick roots of an enormous fungal growth. The glowing spores overhead pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence, casting shifting shadows across the uneven ground. Ethan gripped his stolen blade and waited. One of the hunters stepped into view, visor scanning, weapon raised. It moved cautiously, its posture tighter than before. They had abandoned their arrogance. Now they were careful. Now they were afraid. Ethan stayed still, controlling his breath. The hunter turned its head slightly, just enough for Ethan to see the twitch in its fingers. It was on edge, nerves stretched thin. That was good. Nerves led to mistakes. A distant sound. Another hunter moving elsewhere. A split formation. They were trying to flush him out. Clever, but not clever enough. Ethan shifted his weight, silent as death, and struck. He moved low and fast, the alien blade slicing through the mist. The hunter reacted, twisting to deflect, but it was too slow. Ethan's blade carved through armor, biting deep into flesh. The creature let out a sharp, guttural sound as it staggered, its weapon firing wildly into the trees. Ethan wasted no time. He drove the blade deeper, twisting, feeling the resistance before it gave way. The alien's body slumped against him, its weight pressing forward before it collapsed. 3 down. The shot had given away his position. The last hunter would be coming. Ethan yanked the blade free, wiped it clean, and moved. The jungle opened into a ravine, steep cliffs rising on either side. The ground was uneven, broken by ancient roots that coiled like serpents across the rocky terrain. Ethan slowed, scanning. The last one was near, watching, a whisper of movement. He turned, too late. A force slammed into him from behind, sending him sprawling. His stolen weapon skittered across the rocks, out of reach. He twisted just as a hunter pressed his knee into his chest, its weapon aimed directly at his skull. For a moment, neither of them moved. Up close, the alien's armor was scarred, battle-worn. Its breathing was heavy, but steady. Unlike the others, this one had patience. Ethan's fingers inched toward his knife. The hunter let out a low, guttural sound, not a growl, but something close to amusement. It had seen this move before. It slammed its other hand down, pinning Ethan's wrist to the ground. "You are different," the alien said. The voice was distorted, synthetic, as if translated through a broken machine. Ethan didn't respond. He measured his options. The hunter studied him, head tilting slightly. "You killed my kin." Ethan's breathing was controlled. He kept his expression blank. "They tried to kill me first." The hunter exhaled sharply, something almost like a laugh. "Yes, that is the way of the hunt." The grip on his wrist tightened. Ethan moved. It was a gamble, a split-second calculation. He shifted his weight, forcing the alien's knee to slide just enough for him to twist his body. His free hand shot up, fingers locking onto the hunter's visor. He yanked. The helmet twisted, the alien's balance thrown off. Ethan used a distraction, his knee driving upward, slamming into Hunter's chest. The alien stumbled back. That was all he needed. Ethan rolled, grabbed the fallen weapon, and fired. The energy bolt struck center mass, punching through armor. The alien staggered, its breathing ragged. It looked down at the wound, then back at Ethan. A pause, then a slow nod. Not a submission, not a surrender. Recognition. The hunter collapsed. Ethan remained still for a moment, the hum of the weapon fading in his hands. His breath came slow and measured. The jungle around him was silent. It was over. He had won. But deep in his gut, he knew this was only the beginning. Ethan stood over the last fallen hunter, his breath steady despite the exhaustion creeping into his limbs. His stolen weapon was still warm in his grip, the energy cells humming faintly as they cooled. Around him, the jungle remained eerily silent, as if the planet itself recognized the shift that had taken place. He wasn't being hunted anymore. He had turned the game against them. Yet, something felt unfinished. The bodies of the hunters lay scattered across the terrain, their glowing visors now dark, their weapons useless in their lifeless hands. Ethan scanned the sky. No rescue, no reinforcements. If there were more of them, they weren't coming. And that was the problem. They had fought like warriors, relentless and precise. But true hunters didn't abandon their own. Not unless this was never about killing him. Not unless it was something more. A soft chime broke the silence. Ethan tensed, eyes snapping to the source, the device he had taken from the second hunter's belt. It pulsed with a faint, rhythmic light, its activation triggered by something he had done. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the smooth surface beneath his fingers. Then the light changed. A holographic projection flickered to life above the device. A figure, tall and imposing, its features obscured by static interference. But the eyes were clear, piercing and intelligent. It wasn't one of the hunters. It was something else, something above them. Impressive, the voice said, distorted but unmistakably calculating. You adapted. Ethan remained silent, muscles coiled, ready. You were meant to be a test. The figure tilted its head, studying him through the projection. Few survived the trials. Fewer still turned the hunt upon the hunters. A test. The word settled in Ethan's mind like a weight. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. You've proven unexpected. There was something resembling amusement in the voice, though it was cold, detached. But now you have a choice. The projection shifted, displaying something new, a ship, sleek and unfamiliar, hovering above the jungle. Step aboard. The voice continued. Learn. Become more. Ethan exhaled slowly. And if I refuse? The projection dimmed slightly. Then you stay. You survive. Until the next hunt begins. He understood then. The real game wasn't about death. It was about selection. They had never expected him to win. But now that he had, they wanted to see what else he was capable of. His fingers tightened around the weapon in his hand. He had spent his life as a soldier, a survivor, a man fighting against forces greater than himself. And now, those forces were offering him something new. The ship's engines rumbled in the distance. The choice was his. Ethan looked down at the last fallen hunter, then up at the sky. He made his decision and stepped forward.